This is the only apartment guide you'll ever need for living in Nha Trang. I have packed this video full of information from the very start of the search to the very end. So make sure you stay tuned or else you might miss out on some really good tips to save you a lot of time and a lot of money. But first, let's talk about when you should actually start looking for an apartment in Nha Trang. What you might think is that you can do it ahead of time back in your home country, and that is possible. It's very difficult. The market does move a bit fast here, and people are trying to get commissions as quick as possible. So that leaves you with two options. You can either go onto my website and book me to do it for you before you arrive, and I'll work with you through the whole process, or you can follow this whole guide, and you're going to have to arrive here for this to work. Once you arrive here in Nha Trang, the first thing you need to do is book a hotel for about 2 to 3 days. That's how much I'll estimate it will take for you to look for an apartment and find one. It might extend a bit longer, but that's probably what I'd be guessing for. Once you've booked a hotel, make sure that you walk around all the areas. Now, you might be booking a place in the center, and that's great. You should definitely do that just to see the center. But there's a lot of better areas out there for living. Make sure you go down south. So there's a very local area down south, and there's a more touristy center up north. And then if you go all on the outskirts of the center, there are also areas around there. So what area is right for you? That's up to you to decide. But I have made quite a few videos on Nha Trang already about different neighborhoods, so you can definitely check those out. But once you do find an area that you really like, now the thing you need to work out is what type of housing do you want? Let's start with the first one, and probably one of the most popular, is serviced apartments. What a serviced apartment is essentially it's a building complex owned by a couple of people generally, and it's basically a business. Kind of you can think of it as a hotel, but for more longer term living. These serviced apartments will typically come with great additions such as cleaning once or twice a week depending on their place. You normally won't have to pay for internet at these apartments, but then there's a couple of downsides. So you will have to pay for all of the other bills besides internet, but the internet is shared, meaning that there's normally one modem and it's shared between 2 or 3 apartments, sometimes even the whole floor. This isn't always the case, but majority of the time that's probably what you're looking at. As well as electricity costs are very high, like extremely high. There is 2 different major levels of electricity costs here in Nha Trang, and there's the government rate, which is the lowest at 2,800 per kilowatt, and then the serviced apartments can range. I mean, I've seen some as high as 5,500 per kilowatt, and that's essentially double the price. These contracts for these apartments are typically 3 months to 12 months. You can get monthly. This is probably the best option if you just want to go for monthly, but it is a little bit more difficult. Sometimes there is bills included, but that is rather uncommon, so I wouldn't bank on that. The next option would be private apartments, such as where I'm staying. Private apartments are essentially like the average Joe or investor just buying 1, maybe 2 apartments, and then they just rent it out. The great benefit of a place such as this is it's normally government rate electricity. So you're paying that 2,800 per kilowatt, which is a great thing if you use a lot of electricity, you work from home, air conditioning, etc. These apartments are typically a lot cheaper than the serviced apartments as well. One of the big trade-offs with these apartments is you pay for everything. You will pay for the internet, you will pay for the water, you'll pay for everything. This does include any management fees that might be associated with the building complex itself that everyone that is living in has to pay. These contracts are typically 3 months or above. 3 months is normally the most common contract here, or 6 months. 1 month isn't very common. Can you find them? Of course you can, but you're going to have your work cut out for you. And I'll tell you why that the monthly contracts aren't so common a bit later in the video. Then we'll go into housing. So this is probably one of the most desirable things for everyone that's coming. You can get some great deals, 3-story houses with 4 or 5 bedrooms for $300 to $400 a month. Sounds great. And while it is great, they only do 12-month contracts. So if you really want to settle down and you're sure that you want to be there for 12 months, then go ahead. If you're thinking of any less time frame, I wouldn't waste your time. They're not going to listen to you. They're just going to ignore you. Then you have the hotel option. The hotel option is, of course, you can always book nightly, but what I'm referring to is a lot of hotels will actually do a monthly contract. Now, when you book a hotel for a night, you're not paying for bills and stuff. If you do a monthly contract with a hotel, they will drop the rate of the monthly price for you to stay there, but you will pay for bills majority of the time. I don't think this is a very viable option. If you were going to Da Nang, for example, where the hotel's prices and apartment prices have a bit more of a spread, it makes more sense there. Here, while the apartments are increasing, they're not that bad at the moment. So hotels, while there are great values, I probably wouldn't go for that option unless you really wanted to save a couple of dollars. But then you have other things such as the possibility of your things getting stolen, etc., which does happen across Vietnam. Now that we've gotten that out the way, so let's talk about how to actually explore and find these neighborhoods. So you can, of course, rent a bike, or you can just go and InDrive. So there's an app called InDrive. You've also got Grab. I've made a video on this. Check my whole channel for all of these tips, but InDrive is cheaper than Grab. Just book it, go see the apartment or the neighborhood and have a look around. Construction isn't such a big problem here. What is a problem is karaoke. That's a problem across Vietnam. You're not going to get around it, so make sure you can try to check for karaoke. Check for, obviously, conveniences, right? If you've got a bike, it's not going to be such a big deal, but you obviously want grocery stores, etc. If you can get an ATM, that's even better just for convenience. While you're doing this search, you can keep an eye out for these for rent signs. This isn't the most convenient way of doing things, but what you can get around is bypassing an agent by doing this. So there'll be these for rent signs. There'll be normally a WhatsApp number or a Zalo number. Zalo is essentially like their WhatsApp for more businesses, so you can use that if you'd like. And then just send them a message and just be on your way, because sometimes they won't respond and sometimes they're at occupancy. If you'd like as well, you can also walk into these apartment buildings and just speak to someone if there is someone at the front counter and see if there is any availabilities and what prices they are. And what you can do, even if they are occupied, is ask them how much would it cost a month at this place and get an idea of how big the room is, what it has in it. And then if you do that across a couple of buildings in the area, you'll start to get a picture of what the prices are. Make sure you always check for Wi-Fi speed. Please, I've made this mistake before. Wi-Fi speed is very important, especially if you're working from home or you just want to watch stuff on Netflix. Make sure you do it. So the best option is probably posting on a Facebook group. There are so many Facebook groups. Some are way better than others. Some are targeted for tourists, so you're going to pay higher prices. I'm not going to go through and spend a whole video going through all the different groups. I have done that already myself, so I'm aware of them. If you want to know information about that, you can book a consultation with me and I'll go through it with you. Otherwise, just go through and just type in apartment groups and just try to go through and just post as many as you can. What you want to do is I typically take a screenshot of the area I want and I circle it and I'll say, I'll put it in Vietnamese, I'll translate it to Vietnamese first and then English at the bottom, and then post what you're looking for. So simple, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, my budget is $350 a month, and I want a 3-month contract. I have no pets. If you have no pets, make sure you put that in, because they'll ask you that. And I want my own router. If you ever put, I want my own router, what I normally do will attach a screenshot of a router, just because it can sometimes get lost in translation. Once you do that, you're going to get some responses. Responses will trickle in. And these people that are going to be responding to you 99% of the time are going to be agents. Now, you might be wondering, with these agents, do you pay the fee for the agents? And the answer is no. So going back to what I said about monthly contracts, the agent is working with the owner, and there's normally multiple agents fighting over the same apartment, trying to rent it out, because whoever does gets a commission from the owner every month. So if you only say that it's a 1-month contract, the owner's probably not going to be as excited. And B, the agent isn't going to be as excited as well because it's less money for them, and then they're going to have to find someone else, and they might just lose it completely to another agent. There is also a thing here for Telegram groups. I don't use this personally, but it's more aimed towards the Russian community. What you'll find here in Nha Trang is the Russian community uses Telegram for everything. So they will use it for communicating, they'll use it for ordering food. There's actually delivery apps on Telegram that they will just get food delivered from, as well as they will have their own groups in Russian that are targeted towards them for apartments. Now, personally, from my experience, I've found a lot of those groups to be a bit higher in prices, and they're a bit better furnished. They're more kind of westernized, like high-end places. Are there better groups that I haven't found in Telegram? I'm sure there are. But just for my benefit, I checked and I didn't see much value there, but that is definitely an option. You also have the option of using a real estate agency. So I have tried this twice just to see what it was like and go through the process. So you can go Google and type in real estate agent Nha Trang, and there will be options. I found that one of the ones I used was just completely useless. They just would stop talking all the time. It was just a pain, and a lot of the listings were outdated. But with these real estate agents, the difference is they're supposed to, I haven't used them fully, they're supposed to actually work for you and kind of get prices down, etc. I don't really see that as the case, and I've never heard particularly good things about it. And you have to pay them up front. So they're not getting a commission, or they might be on the back end, but they're asking for money from you. So that is an option. Thought I'd mention it. Probably wouldn't bother, honestly. You also have the option of negotiating with Airbnb hosts directly. Now, I really want to tell you this because I have made a video on it. Specifically, Airbnb itself isn't illegal, but they need to actually apply for like a legal license to do it for stays under 30 days. I have a video on it. You can go check it out. But if you contact them directly, you can typically go and look at the pictures. You'll see the building name, whatever the building name is, and just go onto Google and type it and then try to contact them directly. You can normally work around it and get a cheaper deal. I personally wouldn't go down this route. There are just better options, but hey, that is an option if you choose to do so. If someone has now sent you an apartment, you've seen it, and you go, oh, this is great. They've sent you the pictures. Awesome. Be careful because the pictures that you probably received are outdated. Not necessarily, but most of the time they are. So what you need to do is go and visit in person. When you're visiting these apartments, the first thing you need to do is check for mold. Number one thing, check everywhere. It is a very humid place here. Mold will spread, and if you're not correct and you get it wrong, you can be in for a bit of troubles. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure you ask a bunch of questions. Now, one of the questions you want to ask is about payments. So the way that payments work in Vietnam is typically they will do a 3-month contract, 6-month contract, a year contract, or a monthly contract. For this example, monthly contract is pretty self-explanatory. It's typically a 1 month down and 1 month deposit. 3-month contract is where it gets a little bit more confusing. There's normally 1 month down, 1 month deposit. However, sometimes I'll ask for a combination of, let's say, 2 months upfront and 1 month deposit. So that's how they'll do it. I would not recommend doing this. I've heard horror stories of this. If they say that, try to negotiate them down to a 1 month payment, 1 month deposit. If they told me personally 3 months upfront, I would just walk away. That's the best thing you can do. And then maybe if you walk away, they'll come back to you and go, hey, all right, we'll consider it. Just be careful. There are scams. Be aware of that. Make sure if you can, check the Wi-Fi. Please check the Wi-Fi. It's not, depending on what you're doing, if you're just using it for browsing on your phone and stuff, it's not the biggest deal. If you're using it for Zoom calls, you need to check the Wi-Fi stability. A great example is the apartment I'm in right now. The internet's great. The speed works fine. The problem is every 20 to 30 seconds, there's this huge spike in instability, and it will basically turn me into a robot for a couple of seconds. Please check that. If you don't know how to do it, Google it. I'm just trying to save you time and hassle so you don't go through some of the stuff I have gone through. Make sure you also take a video or photos of the property. especially if you're going through and checking a bunch of different ones, just so you don't forget things. And negotiation. You can negotiate. Negotiation is a big thing here. Typically, you can negotiate down 500,000 to a million. If you're doing a huge upfront, let's say 12 months, putting a bunch of money down, and especially upfront payment, you can knock down the price quite a lot. The interest rate here is rather high for them to put money into their bank account, so they will value that very highly. If you're not going to negotiate, then that's fine, but just remember that there is that option. And as I mentioned, make sure you get the electricity cost, very important, as well as any management fees that they might ask for. You need to think about these things so you're not stung. Also note, by the way, English isn't common. Make sure you got your translator. You're going to be translating a lot. Now, so you found the apartment, everything is good. What should you actually do before signing that rental contract? Now, what you need to do is bring the money up front in cash. 1 month deposit, 1 month upfront, and if there's any fees, bring that extra money as well. Now, the only thing you'll actually need besides the money is your passport. So make sure you bring your passport. They're going to take a picture of it, and then they're just going to show you the contract. The contract's typically going to be written in 3 or 4 different languages. It's going to be written in Russian, it's going to be written in English, it's going to be written in Vietnamese, and sometimes Korean. So it's going to look complicated. Please make sure you read it. I have been a part of one contract which was very heavily biased towards the owner. Make sure that you get a fair deal. Some things that you can note that I would note for checking a contract would be, make sure that there's something in there that if something breaks in the apartment, they have to fix it within a reasonable time frame. Because trust me, this isn't just me, it's other people. If something breaks, like my stovetop broke, they will stretch it out for as long as possible to not fix it, because they don't want to pay to fix it. Make sure you get it in the contract. And if possible, this one's going to be very difficult, but it doesn't hurt to ask, is try to negotiate something in the contract that basically says if there is loud noise, such as e.g. like karaoke, music, construction, that you can terminate the agreement early. That's going to be a hard one to push across. But if you're doing 6 months, 12 months, you're definitely probably going to be able to get away with it. 3 months, you're going to have your work cut out for you. If you stayed to the end, this is one very important thing. So I just kept it just for you guys that stay around to the end. Make sure you please check the bed. Vietnamese beds, if you've never slept on one, are basically like sleeping on rocks. They're very thin, they're not thick, and if you have back problems, guess what? You're going to have back problems all the time. So make sure one of the first things you do is check the bed, or else you're not going to have a great time here in Nha Trang, Vietnam. If you want to see any more things about Nha Trang, I have a whole playlist here. And if you want to book any of my services, go on my website and send me an email. Thank you so much.